Okay, it's now 1 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order. The first thing I'd like to do is to recognize that we are doing business and trying to improve our community on the traditional and ceded territories of the Sooke Nation, who have done similar things for a long time, possibly better than us, probably. All right. I'd like to move for the approval of the agenda. And seconded by Member Ritz. Any comments on the agenda? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to the adoption of the minutes. Could I have a motion for that? Moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Member Cumming. Any comments, corrections on the minutes? No? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay. I don't have a little speech here or anything like that, but I think it's 2 minutes. How long does the public have? I forget. I always forget it exactly.
Sorry, pardon me?
What's the length of time that members of the public have to comment?
2
That's
minutes.
what I thought, 2 minutes. All right. Just confirming. Thank you very much. Okay, so this is the opportunity to comment on any item in the agenda. It has to be in the agenda. Please give your name and the local government you reside in. That's all you need. And then please feel free to give us the benefit of your wisdom. Thank you. Don't have to raise your hand. Just make sure there's no one else at the mic. Go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair Committee. My name is Rachel Sansom. I'm of the Highlands, but I represent several landowners in Sooke. Quick question and comments about item 6.3, the OCP today, regarding 4.6.1, the ALR, hoping we can find ways to creatively support the ALR landowners in Sooke so they can afford to farm by looking at other opportunities, perhaps housing, certainly with the province's support, because that is a jurisdiction. And with regard to buffering the ALRs, maybe try things like nuisance covenants and fencing as opposed to physical or, a distance between the activities, just to warn people that they are by a farm and they can't complain about it. 7.3, with regard to the riparian areas, we do have a lot of provincial laws and jurisdiction around that. So maybe let them do the heavy lifting and just have general guidelines around that as far as Sooke is concerned. 7.3.4.3, I was looking at this with regard to an upcoming project and was confused a little bit by things like terms like a tree stand or retain trees. There's not a lot of guidance around how to do that. What is a tree stand? How many trees do you want to keep? Is there a limit, like a percentage of tree you'd like to maintain? So I don't know if that has room to find its way into this OCP now. Do we need arborist reports? That's not really clear. And then also if we have any guidance around wildfire interface. So those are my comments. Thank you.
That was very brief and to the point. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. This is the only channel. Please turn. Yeah, thank you.
This is the only chance we get to talk about the OCP here today. Is that
today?
Public
today?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. I've submitted 6 or 7 papers over the last 3 years to the council or staff members, starting in fall of 2021, ending in 2023. I've reviewed briefly the modified version of the OCP. I still find it extremely wanting, extremely, It's not the kind of visionary document that we've had in other OCPs. It goes beyond visions and into complexities of enforcement, prohibition, restrictions, not like the other OCPs, of which I participated in every single one since the commencement in the 1970s. I understand that the council is under pressure from the provincial government to do its OCP before the end of the year. And I am not trying to thwart that. I would urge council to do what the minimum requirements are in order to meet the provincial government's requirements, and leave it at that this time. Should you go ahead with the OCP that is present, I predict that you will provoke a backlash in the community, such that in the next election will be fought solely on that, and we will enter the kind of black and white political spectrum that is engulfing the Western world right now, instead of working together as a community. I know that, yes, there are many people that think it's okay, but the people that have to work with it the most, the building community, the construction community, developers, and large landowners, they see it as absolutely abhorrent. We can't work with it. There was a meeting I attended. There wasn't one person in that room that supported it. And in fact, all predicted dire consequences. This is not the way community of Sooke should be. I've lived here either lived or worked here all my life. There hasn't been a year that I wasn't involved in Sooke. And that's not what the path we should go down. So I understand you've got a job to do. I would ask you to shelve the parts that are controversial and do what the minimum is to meet the legal requirements. And let's get together after that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Oh,
William Wallace from downtown Sooke. I'm here to talk about the OCP and the current draft. On March 28th, 2021, council made a motion that took a piece of property away from the draft OCP that was developed by the Citizens Committee and staff recommendations to include a piece of property, Mountain Heights, in the community residential zoning instead of the rural residential zoning recommended by staff and the OCP committee. I'm here to just say I think this is a wrong decision and goes against the whole flavor of the current draft OCP. I don't know why that decision was made. There wasn't public involvement in the process of changing it. It wasn't included in the red line version of the draft that was presented to the public currently. So my position is mainly that given the zoning, there's a potential of 400 to 600 homes that could be built out in that property. That's 4 units per 350 square meters. Under the rural residential zoning, it's 2 units per 4 hectares. And is appropriate maybe for that area. People with a lot of money can still build out there, and the property developer can still build out there. They can put their $3 million homes out there, put in septic fields like everyone else, and live in an area that's susceptible to fire and less burden on the town itself. Right now, we have a $43 million infrastructure deficit. Sooke has a lot of problems, whether it be our storm drains, whether it be our roads.
I'll give you 10 seconds to wrap it up. Your time is up.
Basically, that's it. I'm saying, why was this zoning changed? And can it be changed back? Thank you.
Does staff have enough details to be able to identify the specific item?
Yeah, through the chair. So the property that Mr. Wallace is
Mr. Wallace, you can sit down. We'll see if we're getting an answer from staff right now.
yeah, the property that Mr. Wallace has identified is the Mountain Heights or Farrell Estates property. He's correct. So during a committee of the whole meeting, there's some direction provided by the committee to amend the land use designation in the draft OCP from rural residential to community residential. So it currently exists as a community residential land use designated property. But again, in the original draft OCP bylaw 800, it went to rural residential originally. Then it was switched back after that meeting to community residential and eventually moved forward with the bylaw for readings as community residential. And that's where it remains today.
Okay, so to sum up, it is presently the zoning that it would go back to in the draft OCP that we have now, but the previous draft had downzoned it. Is that correct?
So there's a misunderstanding here. It's not zoning, it's the land use designation.
Right.
So it currently is community residential and it exists in the draft OCP now after that change as community residential.
But the previous draft had it as rural residential.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. That's an excellent clarification. Any other comments from the public?
Good afternoon, Malcolm McNaughton with Key Corp Development and also on behalf of the West Shore Developers Association. I'm working with the group there to review the OCP based on my background as a planner. Was recently attended the meeting with the development community that was held by staff. It was a very good meeting. One of the things that came out of that meeting was that we identified three basic options on how to move forward with the OCP. One is to simply take care of the Bill 44 matters that are required by the province. Another option is the Bill 44 plus the OCP as it is written. And the third option is the Bill 44 OCP and the DPs, which is the whole package. And I would say, similar to one of the previous speakers, that the Bill 44 should be the one that is moved forward. A lot has changed in the 5 years that this OCP has been under development. It really has. I've been developing out here for quite some time, as many of you know, with affordable housing as well as commercial ventures. And there's a lot changed in this community that isn't reflected in this current OCP. And I think that sometimes a sober second thought is a good thing. And I think that you have an opportunity here to do that. I would also say that in terms of the DPs, they are quite a challenge. And I say that because they are far-reaching. I think that they are a reaction to what was considered to be bad development in the past, which really wasn't bad development. It was a lack of staff that was able to oversee. The planning department, the building department is now staffed up, which is a situation that you haven't had for the last almost 10 years. And so what part of my concern is that the pendulum would be swinging too far the other way.
You can
So I will leave you with that, and I would prefer that we proceed with just the Bill 44. Thank you for your time. I
Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
your comments and taking the time. Councillor Bateman.
Will second time speakers be today?
Is that, yes. Well, let's see if yeah, there we go. We'll make sure there are no more first time speakers.
Herb Haldane, District of Sooke. Some clarity needs to be done in the OCP about some of the development permit areas. I mean, we were at the last meeting that Malcolm was just talking about, and it came up that there is no riparian on the ocean, but the OCP talks about how they need to look after environmental issues and so on. And there's provincial guidelines behind looking after properties, upland properties on the ocean, what goes on in the ocean, high water marks and so on. And it had been told to property owners who were on the water over the years by Matthew Paolo at the time that there was no problem. They were going to all be exempt from having to worry about we're looking at the multifamily and the commercial and so on. But then We were told at that meeting that that's actually not the case now. This is all property owners. So if you go to do something where we require a development permit on your property, then they'll be able to take or relax 15 meters from the water, and they'll be able to use that for something down the road, could be trail system, so on. And like Randy Clarkson pointed out in a letter he'd sent recently, we have 27 public accesses to the water in the district of Sooke. Most of them are overgrown. Most of them have vegetation and so on. So they're inaccessible. And the point is, we don't have enough money to take care of those 27 access points. How would we ever come up with enough money to build trail systems along the water and of course maintain them on people's property? So at this point, I think there's some ambiguous points to that. We have to come up with some better wording for it and better understanding. And these waterfront property owners are going to come forward at the public meetings and so on. And because they haven't been really told exactly what's really going on here, because we've had conflicting information, I think we should come up with a policy and a plan and give them real information so they can expect that the next public hearing. Okay, thank you.
Well done. Comments from the public? First time speakers? I think maybe at the end for this one.
Thank you. Is this on?
Yep.
Thank you. Dave Saunders. Thank you, Mayor, council, staff, committee members, citizens. I had to take time off work to come here at 1 o'clock today. I'm a little bit not happy about that. I had to drive all the way from Shawnigan. I don't feel that this meeting should have been held at this time, given the importance of it. I don't know who decided it. I'd like to know who decided to have it at 1 o'clock and why. Number two, Sooke Road is owned by the Ministry of Transportation Highways. When I was mayor for the city of Colwood, we looked at removing some of that road system from into our responsibility. It's a major undertaking, but I'd like to know if the district has confirmed the highway plans for the area with respect to expansion, upgrading, all that kind of stuff. Second, the previous draft of the OCP had zero costing reflective of many of the initiatives in the document itself. Staff had serious concerns about that with respect to costing, and the staff required to do that. I'd like to know if in fact we've costed out at least approximately some of the initiatives associated with this OCP draft to make a decision. In the last 4 years, the over 40% of accumulated taxes increase to our citizens, my family included. This current draft, as I understand it, will also increase taxes. Where do we start controlling, getting back to the basics of no tax increases associated to over and above cost of living? Number 5, Mayor and Council were very concerned about the Bill 44 in the province and the increase in density. The current draft that I've read through increases the density over and above what the province has issued. Thank you very much. That's basically where I'm at. I don't understand how Mayor and Council can argue to the province about density and then reflect a higher density in this current draft. Thank you very much.
Any more first time speakers? Any second time speakers?
Can I hand out these to you, some information on that?
Yeah. If you
Okay.
pass those
I'll
to
give that
Councilor
to
Beaton. Or the corporate officer can.
I just want to reiterate that I'm in favor of the OCP, and I think it has some direction that Sooke should be proud of. Primarily the density improvements in the downtown core. I think that's what the province is telling us to do. That's what the federal government is telling us to do. We need to make compact communities that address transit, housing, and public services, and rein in the costs of our municipality. We just can't keep building suburbs and then 30 years down the road, expect our municipalities to pick up all the deficiencies that arise. We have Sun River has two new lift stations that need. They weren't projecting that all these secondary suites would be going in, but there they are. So we need to be, I think, understanding of what we're trying to, our objections are. And as a community, get behind our OCP and support its objectives. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other first-time speakers? Oh, thanks. Okay, calling for first-time speakers a second time. There we go.
Second time. So to give you an idea of how this whole downtown thing doesn't work, we've got small lots, less than a quarter of an acre. Every house in the downtown minimum worth $700,000-800,000 minimum, probably more, especially if they have a suite. But you've got any land that, say, the District of Sooke owns, which is a 5-acre piece that we bought for $1.5 million for 5 acres. So you divide that up and you start to realize you're $300,000 per acre. But if you go into the downtown, you need to put at least 4 of those houses together, minimum, probably 5 to get an acre. Well, you're talking about close to $5 million per acre. Nobody's going to buy up all those old houses and rip them all down at a huge cost because of asbestos and everything else nowadays, and be able to make any money building any building. So you're not going to see any building in our downtown except on the biggest pieces of property possible we have. We want to build the Throop Road connector on Phillips Road and Throop Road, a bunch of raw land around there. And yet in the OCP, it's designated community residential. We want it to be commercial. We want it to be multifamily. You almost have to pre-zone within this document if we want to get that stuff built at no cost to the taxpayers. You want development to pay for it. One minute we're talking about having to get developers to pay for it. The next minute we're expecting taxpayers to pay for it. Designate the areas, and we're already planning for these big road improvements and stuff over the next 5-10 years. Plan those areas with better designation or pre-zoning. And then that way the developer can get in there fast, quicker, be able to build the sidewalks, the boulevards, the streetlights, all these extra bonus components we're looking for on these road right-of-ways so that the taxpayer doesn't have to come up with the money for it. And I think that's where we're kind of missing the boat on what's happening with the OCP. It's just an incomplete document. It really hasn't been looked at for what our bigger plans are down the road. And we desperately need commercial and industrial in this town. And if you look at the one area there by Shaw's Farm, it still shows technical industrial, and we didn't even represent that in this official community plan. So we fixed that stuff. Thank you.
All right, there's a pro. Finished 5 seconds early last time, 2 seconds early this time. I want note. Okay. Welcome. Snuck in. Whoa. Ninja Berry, Member Berry, sorry. Okay, any other speakers at this time? Okay, then I'll call the public question period comment closed. And actually, I would like to make a quick comment on some of what was said. I think the one thing that I would like to point out is it was mentioned a 40% tax increase, and well aware of that one. Our council and the council I've been a part of have been actually working to essentially make sure we had enough staff and actually overcome 10 years of 0% tax increases, where we were in a situation where mistakes were being made because our staff was in disarray. So I thank the member for pointing out that particular situation, and I'm glad that we've been able to correct it. And unfortunately, I do see us need to keep on correcting things. And the cost of increase should have been included at that time. Had we included a cost increase, if council included a cost increase all along, we wouldn't be looking at 40% over the last little while. And that, of course, would have been appropriate. Thank you. Moving on to reports. On 2350 Sun River Way. Oh, question from Mr. Barry, Member Barry.
Can we comment and discuss some of these discussions? Because it seemed like it's kind of just dropped there. Quick discussion.
No, because right now we're not yet at the OCP part of the, if you want to try and keep those things in mind.
Okay.
And we can bring, we're discussing the OCP. At this point in time, that would derail the entire agenda.
Okay.
Thank you. Back to the reports. 2350 Sun River Way Development Permit.
Item 6.1 is a form and character development permit for a new commercial building and an addition on the property located at 2350 Sun River Way. The subject property is approximately 0.27 hectares and is within the Sun River Estates subdivision, approximately 4 kilometers north of the Sooke Town Center. Property is within Area D of the Sun River Comprehensive Development Zone, or CD2D. The property is within the Community Residential OCP Land Use Designation and within the Community Growth Development Permit Area, DPA2. The property is connected to municipal services, including water and sewer. The property is bordered by district parkland and protected environmental areas to the north. That includes a trail system, a constructed stormwater pond, and an unnamed watercourse. West of the property is an existing community care facility operating as a daycare, and to the south is a shared parking lot, and the west are dedicated park areas. The subject property is within Area D of the Sun River Estates Comprehensive Development Zone, or CD2 zone. Area D is considered Sun River's neighborhood center and allows for commercial uses intended to support the surrounding residential community. Area D effectively includes 6 lots, 4 of which are part of a Bearland Strata subdivision with shared parking. Strata Lot 1, the subject property at 2350 Sun River Way and seen in blue outline, includes an existing commercial building operating as a dental office. Strata Lot 2 at 2340 Sun River Way in red is the site of a community care facility operating as a daycare, and Strata Lot 3, 2330 Sun River Way in orange is currently vacant. The common property south of these 3 Bearland Strata lots serves as shared parking area for the commercial uses on lots 1, 2, and 3. As will be discussed in the zoning, the maximum allowable commercial space in Area D is 1,000 square meters. The property is encumbered by several covenants. Covenant CB 1683859 was registered to allocate that floor area among the 3 lots. This proposal is for a new office building and in addition to an existing dental clinic on Strata Lot 1. The intent of the proposal is to expand on the existing dental clinic by adding floor area and by constructing a separate building on the property. The 1-story, 18.58 square meter dental office addition is on the southwest portion of the property and is intended to serve as a staff room for employees. The construction will include replacing an existing covered patio as well. The new 1-story 114 square meter commercial building is proposed to be located to the east of the existing dental office. The proposal includes as well new landscaping and a 1.5 meter wide concrete pathway that will connect the parking area with both buildings, enhancing accessibility to the site. The proposed buildings are modest in scale. The proposed building is modest in scale, and both the 1-story and addition are designed with pitched roofs and architectural details that are consistent with the character of the single-family dwellings in the immediate area. Materials, roof lines, and landscaping are designed to complement the existing community character. The property lies within the Development Permit Area 2, the Community Growth Area and Comprehensive Development, which includes design guidelines to uphold the existing character of the neighborhood and to protect environmentally sensitive areas from development. An environmental assessment was completed by Danica Consulting and confirms that the proposal will not impact the riparian area located north of the property within a dedicated park area. Overall, the proposed development aligns with the objectives of DPA2 by instilling compatible small-scale commercial design and pedestrian connectivity while protecting the environmental values. As mentioned, the property is within Area D of the Sun River Estates CD2 zone. The CD2D zone limits retail uses to 1,000 square meters. The new commercial floor space will total 299.5 square meters. This is within the zoning restriction of 1,000 square meters and is within the limits of the restrictive covenant that restricts the commercial floor area of Strata Lot 1 to 300.5 square meters. Parking to support the commercial uses in Area D are shared among Bearland Strata Lots 1, 2, and 3 on the common property. Strata Lot 1 will require 10 spaces. Strata Lot 2 with the community care facility with 37 children will require 8 spaces. And Strata Lot 3 that is vacant will have 11 spaces for future uses. The proposal complies fully with the CD2 Area D zoning requirements for permitted uses, floor area height, setbacks, site coverage, and parking within Part 4, Section 4.8 of the zoning bylaw. In accordance with the development procedures bylaw, this development proposal must be approved by council due to its location within a comprehensive development zone. The proposal will follow the following steps. LUDC will consider the proposal and make a recommendation to council. LUDC's recommendation is then presented to council for consideration at the council meeting. Subject to development permit approval, a building permit may be applied for that mirrors the development permit, and the building permit must follow the conditions outlined within the issued development permit. In alignment with the development procedures bylaw, the proposal was circulated to internal district departments and external agencies. The Parks Environmental Services confirmed that no environmental impacts were expected and recommended temporary fencing along the northern property line to prevent encroachment into the parkland during construction. Engineering identified the requirement for stormwater management plan, as is also required in a covenant registered on the property. Building noted a building permit be required, and the fire department requested confirmation of fire flow capacity and that a construction fire safety plan must be submitted before any work begins. Referral responses indicated that there was no concerns related to the development permit application and conditions primarily related to utility coordination, stormwater management, fire safety, and park protection measures. The proposed development permit at 2350 Sun River Way represents a modest expansion of the existing neighborhood serving commercial node in Sun River. The proposal is consistent with applicable zoning regulations and complies with restrictive covenants and aligns with the design guidelines for comprehensive development permit areas, DPA Area 2. Overall, the proposal supports the Sun River community by providing additional local commercial services in a form and scale that is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. Staff recommend the approval of the development permit subject to outlined conditions within the draft development permit. Staff's recommendation to LUDC is that the LUDC recommend that council authorize the issuance of the development permit for the construction of a new commercial building and in addition to an existing building on the property in accordance with the schedules and conditions set out in the development permit PLN 02028. Thank you. This concludes my presentation, and the applicant is present if the committee has any questions for them.
Thank you very much. I'd like the motion on the floor and then we'll begin the discussion. Any questions and discussion. So moved by Councillor Meadows.
Do you want to read the motion out, Mr.
I
Chair?
think that was just done. So I think we're
Okay.
just
I
done.
make the motion that was just read out.
And seconded by Member Ritz. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on from there. Questions for staff? Member Barry.
Through the chair, along the Sooke River, you'll notice
You
there's
can make
been
that through
some,
the chair.
sorry?
Question go through the chair.
Yes, that's what I said, through
Oh,
the chair.
oh, you're right. I'm wrong.
I was just too fast, through the
You
chair.
were, and then you were there. All right, go for it.
Along the Sooke River, there's a very narrow land portion between the road, Phillips Road, and the Sooke River. And I have noticed there's been several spots along there where the land has sloughed off into the river during heavy rains. So I would recommend that whoever is going to be looking after the storm water to either hike across the road and look at that and ensure that that water doesn't get dumped onto that side of the road, and just hoping that the bank's going to handle it, because it's not going to. There's going to be more sloughing off. There's about one line of trees that kind of runs along Phillips Road there, like a bunch of centurions standing up there against the wind, and it's getting pretty battered, I think. So stormwater, I think, is one of the key issues we're going to be facing, and more so into the future as we get more deluges of rain. So something to make a note of, if you could. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, thank through you to staff. And so with development permits, there's no requirement of a public information meeting.
Through the chair, no.
There's no
It was just-
requirement, okay. Have we received any public input on this item?
Through the chair, we have not.
No, okay. I'm curious, so this is the Sun River Dental and Implant Center making this application. The office building, is that for their purposes or for other independent businesses?
Through the chair, the rationale didn't specifically indicate whether it would be for their purpose, but it will be a standalone building that they could put in and tenant separately from themselves. It would have to follow the uses that are also permitted in the CD2D zone.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, since we have the applicant in the room, could I ask that question?
I think so.
Okay. Could you step up to the mic? Thank you. So I was just curious.
Excuse me. Could you
Introduce myself?
Yes, please.
My first name Nagy, and I'm a civil and structural engineer. I am managing the development phase of the project.
Okay, thank you. So I'm asking this question because I know there is a shortage of office space in Sooke, and we're hoping to get more telecommuting situations happening where people are not having to get on that highway and work locally. So I'm just curious, will the office building be open to other independent business?
Yes, right now we are proposing a professional center.
Professional center?
Yes,
Okay.
so it can be any kind of professional service like another clinic, healthcare, maybe accounting office, maybe engineering office, maybe a law firm, any kind of professional service.
Okay, very good.
And also there is a chance that maybe Mr. Choi, if he wants to expand his dental clinic, he can also take part of that new building to use for his current business.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilor Pearson?
Yes, through the chair.
I get your name right. See that?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm sitting in the hot seat. So through the chair to staff, this is CD2 zone, right? That's been identified and in part of the Sun River CD expansion. What's the approximate time frame from this application to here, and how long before they could actually start applying for a building permit?
Yeah, through the chair. So because this doesn't have a notification period as a development permit, it would go on the next council agenda, presumably, and it would be up to council then to authorize issuance to staff. That could happen immediately after the council meeting. We have all that set up. So.
And when did the process start? When did this application come? When did this application hit us?
Believed we received this application end of July, beginning of August.
Okay. So we're 2 months in, two months in. Okay. And what do we anticipate? And so then we anticipate the DP to be in front of us sometime before the end of the year?
Through the chair, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it could be the next council meeting, which would be October 14th.
Just a slight correction there. So, oh yeah, because there's no notification. Nancy, maybe you could confirm, sorry.
We typically take any items off of the LUDC and put it on the second regular council meeting. So it'll be on the October 27th. Unless something is time sensitive, such as the OCP, which that we will bring forward on the 14th. But that's typically the route. So LUDC items will typically always go on the second regular council meeting of the month.
And the opportunity then comes in, because it would be placed in the consent agenda. I would be that. So standard process is the second meeting after?
And it'll come through the consent agenda. Should council have any questions, they can pull it from the consent agenda and have further discussion. Or if council is in agreement, it gets through the consent.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you for that question. Further questions for staff? Okay, I have one actually myself. I'm gonna. Actually, it's not pertinent to this particular item, but may lead to emotion arising or some such. Okay, thank you. Okay, so seeing no further questions, any further comments? Okay, seeing no comments, I'll make one. We need more commercial space. Bless your heart. Okay. All in favor? Not opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you. So moving on to item 6.2. And we're looking for, I think, another report from staff.
So item 6.2
Nope.
is,
Same staff. Okay.
it's always going to be me.
All right.
Item 6.2 is another form and character development permit for an addition to an existing BC liquor store located at unit 9050-6660 Sooke Road. So this site is located within the Evergreen Mall on Sooke Road. The subject property is zoned general commercial or C2 and is within town center land use designation of the OCP. The property is subject to development permit areas of the town center, DPA 1, and the community growth area, DPA 2. The Tim Hortons restaurant is adjacent to the unit, and the unit is within the same building as an insurance office and a Life Labs medical office. The unit shares parking and pedestrian connections with multiple retail and commercial businesses. This proposal is for a single-story addition on the south side of the existing BC liquor store and minor alterations to the store entry. The proposed addition will expand the retail space, replace the loading area in the rear of the building, and introduce upgraded sliding glass doors to the entrance. The sidewalk on the south side of the existing building will be extended along the addition to connect to the existing crosswalk. The proposal will introduce new design elements, not only to the existing south-facing facade, but to the addition as well. This includes a wood-like material in several locations to break up the massing on that side of the building. In addition to new windows and double glass sliding doors, the front entrance of the building will have new stucco panels added to complement the design. The existing loading bay has been replaced by new loading areas and garbage screening. As the footprint of the proposed addition extends into the area that is currently used for loading, access, and parking, the DP submission includes a truck maneuvering plan that demonstrates how trucks will enter and exit the site from Sooke Road. So the property lies within the DPA Town Center and the DPA 2 Community Growth and Comprehensive Development Area. The addition aligns the DPA 1 and 2 policy objectives for creating a pedestrian-focused design and ensuring pedestrian connectivity throughout a development site. The proposal includes added articulation to the visible facade of the building to break up the monotony and massing, and pedestrian circulation will remain unchanged as the sidewalk located along the south side of the building will be extended to meet the existing sidewalk. The subject property is zone commercial, general commercial, or C2. The C2 zone permits a wide range of retail and service commercial uses, including liquor stores. The single-story addition is proposed to be 5.8 meters in height, well within the limit of the C2 zone, as well as the lot coverage will remain well under 60% even with the addition. The existing building and proposed addition meet the required setbacks and maintain sufficient separation from all property boundaries. The conditions of use in the C2 zone limits individual retail establishments to 22,000 square meters, 2,200 square meters. The addition results in a total building floor area of approximately 796 square meters, well within the prescribed limits of that use. Section 4.8 of the zoning bylaw lays out the required parking for uses and allows a 50% reduction of required parking within the town center. As mentioned, the parking area behind the BC liquor store will be replaced with this addition. This will result in a loss of 7 spaces and 1 loading stall. The total number of spaces shared amongst the mall tenants is 269 spaces, which is in excess of the 120 stalls required. Thus, the addition will not trigger a parking variance. As a note, the summary parking study provided in the staff report and in the slide did not include the 50% reduction in on-site parking stalls. So where the summary says 240 spaces are required, that number is actually half, or 120. In accordance with the development procedures bylaw, the proposal must be authorized for issuance by council, given its location within the town center land use designation of the OCP. The proposal will follow the following steps. At the committee meeting, the LUDC will consider the proposed based on form and character of the development and presents the recommendation to council for consideration. At council's meeting, they will consider LUDC's recommended motion and determine whether or not to authorize staff to issue this development permit. If the development permit is issued, a building permit may be applied for. Staff review the building permit for adherence to the current BC building code and alignment to the conditions of the issued DP. So the proposed addition to the BC liquor store at Evergreen Mall is consistent with the general commercial C2 zone regulations and aligns with the form and character objectives of the DPA 1 Town Center and DPA 2 Community Growth Area. The addition respects the height and setback requirements and maintains sufficient parking supply. The building design incorporates facade improvements that reduce blank wall impact and extends the pedestrian connectivity. Staff recommend issuance of the development permit, PLN 02033, in accordance with the schedules appended to the draft development permit. Staff's recommendation to LUDC is as follows. That the Land Use and Development Committee recommend that council authorize the issuance of development permit PLN 02033 for form and character of a 503 square meters single-story addition and improvements to the existing BC liquor store located at Unit 9050-660 Sooke Road, subject to the conditions contained within the development permit PLN 02033. That concludes my presentation, and the applicant is present if any committee members have any questions. Sorry.
Excellent. Thank you,
My
Ms.
last.
Peterson. Okay, so at this point, I'd like the motion moved and seconded, and then we'll begin questions. Moved by Councilor Betos, seconded by Ms. Cummings, and questions for staff. Member Barry.
Could you clarify, I didn't quite catch the parking allowed versus parking existing? This, no?
Through myself, of course, right?
Yeah, so through the chair, there is there is 269 parking spaces on the site currently. They require 120. So they've, with this addition, they're losing 7. With the added floor space, they actually require another 7, but they're well within the requirements with that 269 spaces and only 120 required.
Please continue.
To the owner, I'm just wondering,
I can bring them forward to answer if you wish.
sure.
If you be willing to step up, please. And if we can get your name and where you reside, local government you reside in.
Doug Wong, I'm with WA Architects out of Langford.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just curious, as the cost of square footage of buildings are high, why not go 2 stories or 3 stories high? We look into the future.
Yeah, as far as I know, the client just needed an expansion to the existing store. And to go up to a 2nd floor for storage or loading facilities just doesn't work.
No, just that we're looking at rezoning all these areas and we're trying to do combination of commercial, residential. Would that not be an opportune time to add a couple of residential above that and rent out and make some money? Or
It's possible. The client just didn't go in that direction for this project.
Councilor Bateman.
Yeah, through you, I'll follow up on that. So that this is a property owned by the Skyline Group out of Guelph, correct? So is this, is there a collaboration between the liquor board and Skyline on this project?
The liquor board is a tenant of.
The tenant,
Yeah.
okay.
So it's just, Skyline is just trying to address the tenant requirements for this project.
I'm sorry, my hearing is getting worse.
Okay, Skyline is just attempting to satisfy the
needs of the
the needs.
tenant.
That's correct.
Yes, okay. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think that's a missed opportunity here for some expanded space. But I'm gonna move over to staff questions now, so thank you.
Thank you.
Unless anyone else?
Further staff question. Councilor Pearson.
Yeah, through the chair to the staff. If our proposed new OCP, would this single story be allowed in the new OCP?
I can do that.
As currently drafted?
Yeah, through the chair, there's no limitation basically on like minimum densities or minimum heights in the town center. It just allows for up to 6 stories basically in the town center.
Okay. And I'm going to ask the same question through the chair. How long has this been in process? When did the application come? And how long before we anticipate the DP being passed?
Through the
I
chair,
see there's a delegated piece to this.
I believe this one came into us this summer as well. So July, August, around the same time as the Sun River one did.
Okay. And we anticipate the building permit to be applied for before the end of the year?
Through the chair.
Well, it's up to them, but it could be.
I believe, and Mr. Wong can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe they applied today already.
Thank you.
Any further questions, Ms. Cummings? Fritz, please.
I guess my only concern, and I'm kind of trusting that the truck radius, because I realize this is more than doubling the size of the current liquor store, so it's kind of taking space. And there used to be 2 bays and now there's 1 bay, if I'm reading it correctly. And then the truck radius, it does seem quite tight because they talk about there'd be no space for additional landscaping. So I'm trusting that that's okay. Like, it's not really a question, but just want to be certain that you're comfortable with how it is for pedestrian safety and truck driver safety and things like that.
If staff could comment on that?
Through the chair, we trust when they give us a study showing the parking maneuverability of the site. And
Okay, so a study was done. Councilor Beddoes?
No, I don't really have any questions. To me, it's fairly straightforward. They want an expansion. They have a room to expand. It's not going to affect the parking. Really don't care about the height of it. It's what the person owns this property, and he's trying to satisfy the client's needs. So I don't have any problem with it at all.
Thank you very much. Okay, so any comments at this time? Councilor Beddoes, Councilor Bateman, sorry.
Bateman, yeah. So yeah, I agree. This is very straightforward. There's some interesting points at play. I find these parking considerations are fascinating. So the Skyline could have put in just 134 parking spaces in total. So I guess this speaks to the wisdom of the commercial developers in the marketplace, that they did in fact build sufficient parking spaces for the needs of a shopping mall. I was there this morning and the BCGEU is out en masse circling the liquor store, and I didn't cross the picket line, but I did note that the entire Evergreen Mall was packed to capacity. So I do look forward to Skyline getting inventive with Evergreen Mall and beginning work on future expansion of the mall. It's very much central. I'd also just quickly note that a student at Edward Mellon Community School some years back had identified the side wall, the south-facing wall, as a perfect spot for a mural. And I think there's going to be some nice aesthetic improvements, basic aesthetic improvements, but that mural idea was delightful. And it might be a piece of community engagement that the BC Liquor might be interested in. So perhaps I could forward that to you or to your client. Okay, thank you.
Member Ritz, yes.
Just a question, and this might not be the appropriate place, but the signage. Is there I really don't want a repeat of the Shoppers Drug Mart signage. So I think hopefully we can do something a little bit more aesthetically pleasing.
Is the signage changing?
through the chair, no, there's no sign. There's no sign on that side. It's really just some decorative panels going in. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Further comments? Member Cummings?
No comments. I think it supports everything and I like it.
Good. Okay, seeing no further comments, I'll make one myself. Just in response to Councillor Bateman, I could be wrong and maybe staff can correct me, but I have the feeling that the larger amount of parking was when different rules were in place. And the 50% reduction probably happened since then. I don't think a developer actually put 2 to 3 times as much parking as they were required to. That's my guess. Okay, and I see nods from staff, so that's probably the case. The other thing that I would just like to beg, really, is what I'm doing here. If you could take back to Skyline the message that we are very interested in more commercial space, and that if they had considered putting 405 meters of professional space similar to the previous applicant on top, we probably would have said yes. And if there was money to be made there, we'd be happy for them to make it. Okay, so just take it away. The other thing would be the mural. Mural is a great plan. It also prevents graffiti, enlivens the community, makes your property look better. But mostly it helps prevent graffiti. So There's that as well. Okay, any further comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? None opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, now to the meat of it. Item 6.3, the OCP. Yes, let's put the motion on the floor. Actually, the motion will come after the report from staff.
We're good. Okay, yes, thank you, Chair. This agenda item is related to the What We Learned report, which has been prepared by our consultant team at Urban Systems and represented here today by Brittany Tuttle. The report summarizes the survey results, the open houses, the pop-up events, and targeted meetings with the development community. At a high level, we heard strong support for the vision of the plan, particularly around environmental protection, parks, and compact growth in the town center. At the same time, recurring themes came through on growth management, infrastructure capacity, and the cost and complexity of development permit areas. I want to note that the report also includes appendices of the survey responses, as well as written feedback received from the public and the Sooke Builders Association with district responses. Additional submissions were received by a local qualified environmental professional and a Sooke Point developer, both summarized in the body of the report, and will inform further staff review, including legal advice that has been requested. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Tuttle to walk us through the findings of the report in more detail.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Welcome, Ms. Tuttle.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today. Thanks for the introduction, Jaden. So we will jump right into the findings of the What We Learned report. But first, before we do that, we'll just go over a quick purpose of why we're presenting these findings today. We'll give a quick overview about the project. Just to recap, I know that the committee is familiar with the official community plan project, but it's been a couple of months since we have been discussing this item with you. So just providing a quick recap about that. And then we will give you an overview about how we engaged with the community, as well as how we informed the community about this latest round of the OCP edits. And then we will get into the key learnings of what we took away from what we heard from the community during this last round of engagement. And then I will turn it over to Jaden to close out the discussion on this item. And then we will turn it over to yourselves for any questions. So the purpose of today's discussion about the official community plan What We Learned report is to provide the Land Use and Development Committee with an update on the recent OCP engagement period, how we engaged and informed the community on this project, what the level of participation was during this last round of engagement, as well as what we learned. So first, we'll provide a quick overview about the project, and starting first with what is an official community plan. So an official community plan, commonly referred to as an OCP, is a bylaw that is adopted by a local government's mayor and council that aims to shape how a community will grow and develop over a long-term period of typically 20 to 25 years. And in this case, Sooke's plan is projected for the time period of 2050. So if it was adopted in 2025, it would be a 25-year vision. So unlike a zoning bylaw and other municipal regulatory documents, OCPs are very high-level aspirational documents that set a vision and goals for the community's future. And these statements are usually developed through extensive community engagement to reflect their values and aspirations. Then a series of policy statements are included within the document that aim to implement that higher level of vision and goals, and also provide direction on key elements of the community, such as land use, transportation, housing, parks, recreation, the environment, and so many other items that are related to a community. The Local Government Act provides the regulatory framework for OCPs by outlining what must be included in these documents, and there are a number of items that must be included. It also outlines things that may be included in OCPs as well. A land use map, for example, is something that must be included, and it must identify how land is going to be used, and then there must be subsequent policy direction that provides further details about the implementation of that map as well. Community infrastructure and housing are a couple of other examples of items that OCPs must provide direction on. These documents are strategic planning documents that can and should be used by a mayor and council in setting strategic priorities for a community for the short and long term, as well as making decisions related to land use and development and setting the stage for any subsequent plans and policies such as master plans. So the Picture Sooke OCP update project kicked off back in 2020, so 5 years ago. And following this kickoff, significant engagement with the community was facilitated in the first few years between 2021 and 2023 largely. So you may recall this engagement period was referred to as Picture Sooke. And that's because the engagement at the time was really focused on establishing a clear vision and goals for the community. And there were a number of opportunities that were provided for community members to provide input on the OCP's proposed vision, goals, growth scenarios, and draft policy. And I will speak to what a few of those opportunities were on the next slide. The draft OCP was given first and second readings in 2022, and there was a special committee of the whole meeting dedicated to providing the public with an additional opportunity to provide feedback on the OCP in 2023. Shortly after this meeting, the OCP update was put on pause due to the introduction of Bill 44 housing legislation. And that was for a number of reasons, because the legislation was requiring OCPs to now include information related to 20-year housing needs, ensuring that these housing needs report findings were integrated into the official community plans and also reflected in the land use maps and land use policies. So on this slide here is a quick snapshot of all the engagement touch points that occurred during that 2021 to 2023 engagement period called Picture Sooke. And so here you'll see that there were over 2,000 engagement touch points that occurred during that time through a number of OCP advisory committee meetings, pop-up visits throughout the community, survey responses, community postcards, and other forms of engagement. Now we are in what we are referring to as the final frame stage of the project. Council directed staff at the beginning of this year in January to proceed with revising the OCP to address Bill 44 requirements and public feedback from the previous rounds of engagement that occurred between 2021 and 2023, to maintain the vision and core goals that were established in the earlier phases of the project, and to retain a consultant to assist with document formatting, design, and engagement services. And Council's direction at that time was that significant work had been completed and engagement undertaken up to 2023, and that only refinement of the document would be necessary for this final stage of the OCP project. And this is in essence why we have referred to this final stage of the project as the final frame. In the months following the direction provided by Council in January, our team at Urban Systems was hired to support staff in drafting an engagement plan for the final stages of this project. In addition, district staff prepared red line edits to the OCP per the direction that was provided from Council in January. And both the red line edits to the OCP and the draft engagement plan were presented to Council along with members of the Land Use and Development Committee in July for endorsement. So at that meeting with Council in July, Council provided direction to initiate a final round of public engagement in accordance with the proposed engagement plan, and to use the red line edits that were made to the OCP by staff as the basis for such engagement. Council also directed staff to bring back the bylaw for consideration of any proposed amendments to the document that would be resulting from the engagement. Staff do intend to bring back to Council any such amendments to the bylaw when it is considered for second reading as amended. And one final note on this slide here is that it's important to acknowledge that the OCP must integrate findings of the interim housing needs report by the end of this year per the Local Government Act. So aspects of the OCP must be amended to incorporate those items by the end of this year. Okay, so now jumping into the engagement. How we engaged, we'll talk about that first, and then I'll get into how we inform the community as well. So the final stage of engagement kicked off in September, and it ran largely throughout the month of September. And this occurred when the revised draft of the OCP was posted on the Let's Talk Sooke page, which was just following the Labor Day long weekend. A redline version of the document was also posted on the webpage at that time. Along with the posting of the revised draft of the document, there was a feedback survey as well, where members of the community could provide any comments that they had on the new document. And the survey sought to understand if the revised OCP provides clear policy direction for Sooke, and if the community felt that the previous feedback and the legislative requirements were sufficiently addressed. Hard copies of the survey were also available at the district office and at the in-person community open house for those who may not be able to access it online. There was an in-person open house held at Sooke Community Hall on September 14th from 10 to 3. And this event was facilitated by district staff and provided residents with an opportunity to learn about the draft OCP and its proposed key changes. Attendees were invited to review the information provided and contribute feedback through written comments on a series of interactive boards, I believe there were 5, or through direct conversations with staff at the event. There was also a feedback station at the event, which allowed attendees to complete the feedback survey, and there were digital copies available on tablets as well as paper copies. A few days following the in-person open house, there was a virtual version of this event held on Zoom on the morning of September 17th. And that was for those who may have been unable to attend the in-person event or for those who may have preferred an online option. This event presented the same information that was presented at the in-person open house. And it ended with a facilitated question and answer period where staff were available to answer any questions that were posed from the participants. And earlier in the month, we met with members of the development community on September 10th here at Municipal Hall to discuss the latest revisions to the draft OCP with a focus on the proposed development permit areas, as previous feedback from the development community highlighted concerns about these development permit areas and their associated guidelines and requirements. It's also important to note that a number of community members chose to provide written feedback on the OCP, including emails directed to staff and elected officials, and questions were also published on the project webpage, and some had also submitted written letters. So we informed the community about how they could get, they could provide feedback on this project through a number of channels. The district created a new webpage on the Let's Talk Sooke website that was dedicated to the OCP. And this webpage is still live. It acts as a central location for all information about the project. It includes any background materials related to the project, the open house materials, as well as the virtual open house materials, and the draft versions of the OCP that I mentioned before. This is also where the feedback survey lived when it was live last month. There's also an ask and question section where folks are welcome to submit any questions about the OCP, which can then be answered by district staff. And all questions and staff responses were posted publicly on the project webpage last month as well. In August, district staff attended 4 community events, pop-up events to promote the OCP engagement period that was going to be occurring in September. And the intent of these events was to inform the community about the project's restart, to encourage participation in those upcoming engagement events, and to have direct conversations with residents about the OCP. And so 3 of these pop-ups occurred at the Sooke Night Market, and 1 was at the Broom Hill Playground. In terms of advertising, there were a number of channels used to advise the community about the draft OCP and how they could get involved. There were ads included in the Sooke News Mirror, as well as digitally and on social media as sponsored ads. A digital reader board to advertise the open house was stationed on Highway 14, coming into town and at the Sea Park Recreation Center. There were 2 news releases issued, and email notices were sent over 1,250 recipients via the OCP mailing list, public participation mailing list, and OCP stakeholder list. Information about the OCP was also included in monthly newsletters that were sent to over 700 recipients. And posters were put up at Municipal Hall and in council chambers as well. We also wanted to note that staff did provide the opportunity for organizations and individuals on the mailing list and informally during engagement events to schedule meetings with staff to review the OCP or sections of it if questions could not be addressed through the existing engagement channels. Throughout the engagement period, over 1,700 visits were made to the Let's Talk Sooke OCP page, and the draft OCP was downloaded 338 times. There were just under 120 community members who attended the community open houses, so both the virtual and in-person open house. And there were over 2,000 email notices that were sent out, providing information about the project and how to get involved. Okay, so let's get into the key engagement learnings. So I'm going to provide you with a summary of all of the engagement feedback, what the key themes were that emerged from all of the different channels of information where folks provided their input. The first theme that is worth highlighting is that there was strong public support for the draft OCP and its proposed changes. Many engagement participants indicated overall support for the direction of the plan proposed and shared that they believed it was reflective of the community's values. Many participants expressed excitement to see the OCP move forward after years of consultation and were appreciative of the additional engagements held last month. These sentiments were present amongst those who attended the open house, with 100% of participating attendees indicating that they felt they were better informed after attending the event, as well as in the survey, where 62% of respondents indicated that the draft OCP provides very or mostly clear guidance for the community. And 65% of respondents felt that they were very well or well informed about the OCP and its proposed updates. In addition, the district received 6 letters of support for adopting the draft OCP as written. The next point that I'd like to highlight is the importance of balanced and practical implementation. This was a key theme that emerged through the feedback. There were some concerns noted in the draft amongst folks who provided input on the draft OCP that were broadly related to density, implementation costs, and scope of implementation. Generally, these concerns were related to the potential for over-densification in the community, any potential unaffordable tax implications, and a potential perceived overreach of the proposed policy direction, mostly related to climate and equity. We wanted to note that the implementation of many OCP policies will require council direction and budget approval through future planning processes. Another theme that emerged was the value of Sooke's environment, waterfront, and access to green space. Many participants suggested strong support for the OCP's focus on environmental protection. These comments showed strong alignment with the community vision developed in the previous engagement processes. Many community members made suggestions for more opportunities to increase access to nature and the waterfront, with some requesting additional or strengthened language on this topic in the OCP. Another theme that emerged was enabling housing through effective and clear guidelines. Members of the local development community highlighted concerns with the proposed development permit areas, citing potential time and cost implications for new housing development. Further, some engagement participants were also requested clearer language, checklists that would help them with implementing development permits where they might need one for their property, and an expanded exemptions list for the development permit areas to better clarify the district's expectations for new development. This feedback also aligns with previous concerns that were raised in 2022 and 2023 during those engagement processes on the OCP. And these concerns have been partially addressed through the existing proposed edits to the OCP, particularly in relation to the revised exemptions. Finally, the last theme that emerged was continued public engagement on shared issues. So discussions about the OCP's intent often led to discussion about other specific issues or projects or developments underway in Sooke, for example, sewer expansion projects and the Throop Road connector. And these conversations signal that perhaps further engagement with residents may be helpful on these topics. As I mentioned before, the district received a number of written submissions from community members regarding the draft OCP. And correspondence included both strong support for the draft plan as well as concerns about specific policies. These letters are included in Appendix A of the What We Learned report if you wish to take a look through those. It's important to note that district staff have provided responses to the majority of these submissions. However, follow-up on some remaining items is still underway. And staff will continue to provide clarification as needed throughout the remainder of the OCP process. The key themes emerging from these written submissions include support for the OCP and its vision. As I noted on the last slide, there were a number of submissions that were in support of this document, and some even urged council to adopt the OCP, citing the extensive consultation that has already taken place. There were also some neighborhood-specific concerns that were identified, and these were detailed submissions received from residents of the Billings, Spit, Kaltassin, and Gateway areas of Sooke, and I'm going to speak to those further on the next slide. Another theme of the written correspondence was related to growth management and density. Some folks indicated that the proposed density targets are perhaps too high, and that this could potentially increase traffic congestion and complicate emergency evacuation in Sooke, while others supported greater density and smaller lots to encourage compact growth and reduce sprawl. So there was a bit of conflicting responses in terms of the comments around growth management and density. There were also some comments about financial feasibility and taxation in the written correspondence, and some community members flagged concerns about implementation of the OCP leading to cost increases. However, as I noted on the last slide as well, there will be additional budget and strategic planning processes associated with implementation of the OCP. And finally, there were several letters emphasizing the importance of collaboration between developers and the district, noting that faster approvals for projects can lead to community benefits, and clear and consistent processes to avoid unnecessary barriers are things that the district should continue to work towards. We also received some written correspondence from members of the local development community, including the Sooke Builders Association, a qualified environmental professional, and Sooke Point. And these folks submitted formal written feedback in addition to attending the development community meeting that was hosted in September. These letters did contain specific suggestions for changes to the draft to establish greater clarity and certainty for current and future developments. The Sooke Builders Association and QEP comments were very detailed, and these will be considered by staff when they are making further revisions to the OCP. And the individual submission from Sooke Point outlined concerns that were captured by other members of the community as well in the engagement period. Okay, so speaking to the specific current concerns for Billings, Spit, Kaltassin, and Gateway areas, there was feedback shared by a resident of the Billings, Spit, Kaltassin area about the proposed environmental DPAs, the foreshore setbacks, and potential impacts to private property. And the feedback provided by this individual seeks greater clarity in the development permit areas to ensure that requirements do not apply to common activities such as landscaping and property maintenance. Another community member from the area also encouraged the district to revise the area's land use designations, address transportation and safety concerns, and provide more neighborhood level planning and infrastructure for the area. in regards to the gateway area, there was feedback received specific to this area, which included encouraging more commercial opportunities here, considering reduced minimum lot size requirements to allow for more densification, and support for EV charging infrastructure and neighborhood serving commercial uses. And finally, I'll provide a summary of the feedback that we heard at the meeting with the development community. And if you have a chance to review any of the input that was provided from the development community as well, a number of these concerns are detailed in the written submissions that we received. So those who attended the development community did provide input on a number of matters, and this is just a summary of the key themes of what we heard during that meeting. The first one that I'll highlight is related to growth management, and there was particular concern here in terms of ensuring that multi-unit housing goals are balanced with demand for other forms of grant-oriented housing, as well as the costs associated with being able to provide these forms of housing. There was concern about the cost implications of the OCP's objectives in achieving its higher level vision and goals. And some specific examples that came up are how encouraging fourplexes, the BC step code implementation, and net zero retrofits for public buildings could be counterintuitive to some of the district's broader affordability goals, particularly for encouraging more forms of affordable housing. There were comments related to perhaps better streamlining or consolidating the OCP to make the document easier to navigate. And this is something that we did mention to members of the development community, that it was considered when revisions were made to the OCP, but that the length of the document was not reduced so as to not take away from the integrity of the document's policies. There was also some discussion about alignment with council priorities, and that there would be confirmation that all of the maps in the OCP actually align with the priorities of council. And there were a number of concerns related to the development permit areas that were raised. For example, an increase from 3 development permit areas in the existing OCP to 9 development permit areas in the new OCP. There was concern that this may create more complexity for applicants. There were also requests for clearer language, checklists, and exemptions to support clarity and predictability of the district's expectations for implementing these DPAs. There were also some questions regarding the need for DPA 1, which is the proposed energy and water conservation and greenhouse gas emissions reduction DPA, given that existing provincial and building code requirements for lowering building emissions do exist. There were also concerns about the potential retroactive applicability of new DPAs to previously issued development permits, particularly for those that are already under construction. And finally, another key comment that we heard at this meeting was related to the language used in the document. And developers had indicated that they would like to see more flexible language used in the OCP, things such as guides rather than dictates, to leave some room for flexibility in decision making. So there is a bit of a balance there to acknowledge in terms of providing more clarity for some of the requirements that they would like to see, and then also allowing for that flexibility. So a key thing that will need to be considered in this next round of revisions. Okay, so getting into next steps. There is a meeting with yourselves, some of you who are members of council, and the rest of council and the mayor next week on October 14th to present the What We Learned report findings again, as well as to seek direction on next steps. And then a next round of revisions to the OCP will be prepared in preparation for second reading to be considered by council. And this will be second reading as amended, I should note. And then, of course, there is still a target adoption date by the end of this year per the legislated requirements. Anything further to add there, Jaden?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I guess just to close here, I wanted to emphasize that the What We Learned report is a record of engagement. So it captures what we learned, but doesn't represent staff's conclusions or council's decisions, right? So it's being presented for information here. Next steps, as Brittany noted, would be for staff to return, as per council's direction on July 14th, return to council with a revised draft of the OCP for reconsideration of second reading before moving to a public hearing. So it's another opportunity for public input there. So that concludes this presentation, and both Brittany and I are available for questions if the committee has any.
Councillor Beddoes has moved the motion. Do I have a seconder? No, nope. Member Ritz, thank you very much. Okay, so what I'd like to do right now before we begin with questions is once again just reaffirm that what we're doing here today at this point in time is seeing whether or not we want to move forward the recommendation that the Land Use Committee, Development Committee recommend that council receive what we learned for information. So we're not actually here to debate the merits of what we learned or to actually decide on any of the content. We're here to decide whether or not this particular report and what we learned should go to council. So on that topic, any questions for staff? Member Berry, and then Mr. Councilor.
Through the chair, what happens if we don't?
What happens if we don't? Recommend that it goes to council, I think is the question. Yes. There we go. Through to staff. It's a good one.
Perhaps I could take a crack at it. So the motion would go forward as to the consent agenda on October 27th, or I guess it'd be the October 14th meeting, as being a denied motion or a motion that wasn't approved. And council could pull it at that point in time and make a different decision if they so desired, or stick with the recommendation of the committee and decide not to proceed. So that would be up to council at the next council meeting.
Thank you for that. Councilor Pearson.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
interesting question.
Just like to add to that briefly.
This is through the chair to staff, this is the only time in the process that the land use committee is going to have any comments, but they're not really going to have comments about content. They're just looking at the process. Is that correct? The way I understand it?
Yeah, through the chair. So this would be the last time this comes forward to the Land Use and Development Committee. It's going to go to council potentially for information, and then second reading for reconsideration with further amendments, and then just council meetings subsequent to that.
So to interpret that, it's the only time. This is the only time.
That's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
to LUDC.
And we're removed from content. We're only following process right now. So there's zero discussion on content of the OCP in its current format.
Yeah, through the chair. So the committee certainly could be asking questions regarding the contents of the What We Learned report. And can speak procedure, of course, as well. The chair can determine what falls within that those parameters. But yeah, we can certainly answer questions regarding the contents of the What We Learned report and feedback received.
Just to answer that, I think it's entirely germane that if you have any concerns about the contents of the report, we can look at that. Absolutely, okay. And that could be discussed. That would be part of it for sure.
Yeah, I do have some concerns of the content.
Well, there we go.
Yeah, and I don't even know where to begin, actually. This is, and I'm going to make comments, I guess, probably first, and then ask some questions, but this is an unwieldy document that has been 5 years in the making, and it's huge, and life has changed. I don't see anything to deal with affordability in our community in this plan, which was a driver. And the landscape has shifted. Bill 44 has come in on the tail end of it. So I get that Bill 44 is sort of supposed to catch that. There's a lot of property infringement that's built into this, in the DPAs? I heard.
Debating the OCP.
No, I don't think.
I was asked if I,
And actually, if these are questions, they're questions. Otherwise, this could wait for comments.
yeah,
So do you have any questions for staff?
yeah. So, and it's not out of order, 3 DPAs, now to 9. When will we get to examine those DPAs in content? Who's going to make the decision on those DPAs?
Yeah, through,
To staff, for staff?
yeah, through the chair, that would be council. So we would present this bylaw to council for consideration. Council
Correct.
makes that decision.
So the land use committee, going back to my original question, so the land use committee has no input on the DPAs, no decision making.
The committee may make recommendations for council's consideration. And that's the limit basically of its authority.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Any further questions?
Not now.
Not right now.
Not right.
Okay. Councillor Bateman. Oh, sorry, Ms. Owens.
Sorry, through the chair, just to make it clear, the committee is able to, should they wish, make a recommended motion to bring forward to council because it's germane to the content of the agenda. So certainly, perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Bateman first. Yes.
So yeah, thank you very much for this report and all the work that went into the engagement process. I did, just in terms of what Councillor Pearson's saying, my question through you to staff would be, council, of course, could make a recommendation that this report come back to, or your redlined. Okay, let me go back here. So on October 18th, 14th, are we getting a redlined update that incorporates the recommended changes identified within this report?
Through the chair, so this report and its content, so the attachments would simply flow to council with the committee's recommendation on the consent agenda.
Okay.
And at that point, council could then move to receive the report for information. And because of the July, sorry, I'm forgetting the date, but the July motion from council basically has already directed staff to bring forward those amendments following this engagement period for second reading at a following meeting.
Okay. Yeah. And at that time we received, so that's October 27th. We would receive, wait a sec, go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair. So just to answer your question, which what I think is going to be, is basically to bring this OCP bylaw with the draft edits, additional redlined edits that addresses not only the previous iteration of changes, but also the subsequent engagement feedback we've received, and then have it reconsidered for second reading.
Yeah.
That would be the meeting following this report flowing on the consent agenda for.
So that would be October 27th.
Potentially, yes.
Yes, okay, potentially. And at that time, we'd also receive a new table of changes.
Through the chair, that's correct.
That's correct. Okay. So at that time, potentially, council could recommend that this document at second reading come back to this council or this committee for input, I believe. Okay, so having said all that, and whether I'm right or wrong, we'll find out as this unfolds over the next month, unless.
Yeah, so through the chair, just a note here as well is that we are a bit time constrained with this project. We're trying to get it approved or adopted, the OCP bylaw, before the end of the year. And to do that, we have to hit certain targets. To bring it back to LUDC would delay the process significantly.
Okay, and I guess given the wide range of content within this what we heard report, we can ask about just about any question we like about the OCP today, and it will be covered, but we just need to reference where it is in the document. So my first question to you would be, were you disappointed at all with the turnout at this final frame engagement? Or could you explain the relatively small turnout and engagement?
Thank you for that, because yeah, I don't think asking for disappointing questions is really what we're looking for here. Thank you.
Through the chair, I would say that given that the engagement period was a relatively short period of time, that the numbers were strong. having over 100 people attend the open house for only, given that it was only one day that it was being held, is quite a positive number. And so overall, I think we are content with the level of participation, given that it was a short period of time.
Okay, good. I was interested in your perspective. So we had 2,000 touch points in the earlier stages of the process. And I've been pointing out in council meetings that Langford, for example, just went through its process and had about under 1,000 people engaged. So is our 2,000, so in fact, we've had pretty broad and good community engagement.
Through the chair, yes, you have had many engagement touch points over a number of years and positive turnout throughout all of those processes. So I would say overall, yes, you have had strong turnout, and it's been helpful to understand more, or it's been helpful to inform broadly what the community would like to see in this document.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bell. Yeah, I'm sorry, but Councillor Beddoes has been very patient, as much as he can be.
Thank you for that. Thank you for staff and our consultant. And these follow-up questions are very helpful. And that my concern was that, have we reached out to the public? Because this is the people's document. This is for the community values and aspirations of the community. So it's important to me that we gather all the information we have can get. Now, I understand it comes to, this is just an information report that goes to council. Then it goes to second reading, and then it goes to public input. Is that right? We have a public hearing?
Yeah, through the chair, there would be a public hearing.
Yeah, sorry, through the chair. Yeah, so there's a public hearing. There's council debate. So there's lots of opportunities to, if you have something wrong with the OCP that's really glaring, that you can bring up. At this point in time, it's just a matter of, are we happy with, considering the time constraints of the report that is made here? And I am, whether I agree with some or disagree with others, this is just a matter of how we went about to get to more information. We've been getting information for 4 years. So I think there's been a lot of touch points. So right now, I think that in the end, it has to go to the people that are tasked with making that decision, and that's council. And that's where the buck stops, with council. So my job, and I think my counselor, is to gather as much information as we can and to make the decisions as best we can with the information that we got. And I think this has gone a long way to getting that information. I certainly don't want to hear, well, we'll hear people saying there wasn't opportunity. There is opportunity. There's still opportunity. And if there's something wrong with it, then we could possibly change it. So I would encourage that we send this to council, the people that actually are paid, not much, by the way, paid to make these decisions. So that's my motivation. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Member Cummings.
Yeah, so I have a few comments and questions. To be transparent, I'm a director of the SBA, and I attended that development committee workshop. And like you said, there was 21 members there. There was not a lot of positive of those 21 members. And I think there was a few council members there too. So I hope that kind of sat in. I know you mentioned you received 6 letters of support of the document. How many unsupported letters did you receive?
Through the chair, I'd have to go back and look to see if there was any specific letters of support that were received, but the summary that we provided is generally speaking to the general consensus that folks were in support of moving forward with adopting this document. So if there were a number of letters specifically that were unsupportive of the document, it would have been less than 6. Otherwise, we would have pointed that out in the report.
Thank you. I guess, and kind of bouncing off what Councillor Beddoes has said, is lots of the issues from the development committee's side is that lots of the changes suggested over time haven't been adopted. They've made the comments, it's been put in, and that's sort of where things seem to have stopped. So I just want to make sure that when it goes to council, you guys really take that all into consideration.
Okay. I'm gonna go to Member Barry. Any comments? No? Yes, please.
I do have a specific question. I just want to ask it so that it's not a mistake in the document. But under section 3.2 land use, the waterfront, the town center waterfront, it ranges in maximum height ranges anywhere from 3 to 6 stories. And newly added was under maximum density, it said 2.2 far was in the original, the last copy that the committee looked at. And now it says 2 to 5 far. So I'm just wondering, 5 seems a lot. And then if you look under town center core, which is the area where the OCP committee thought that the real high density should go, that's 6 stories and it has a 2.5 far. So I don't understand how waterfront center, which is supposed to be less dense, has a 2.5. Does that make sense? So it could be
does.
just me not understanding, but I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that wasn't an error.
Yeah, so through the chair, that change was made before this document received first reading. So we haven't made any changes regarding that FAR, so floor area ratio, to that maximum density in the table. So it has existed there since first reading. It may have changed following committee potentially, but yeah, it has always existed. And I guess the rationale for that would be, I guess the 5.0 FAR is to be centered around Waterview Street, which is Brownsea Boulevard. That is kind of the epicenter of the town center as per the town center plan. So allowing the city's greatest densities in that corridor and then tapering off as you go west. So yeah, it is a lot. It does control massing. But yeah, the town center generally, the transitional residential or the town center core, which you may think should be the higher density, wasn't focused on the main corridor in the town center plan, which would be Waterview Way. And that's what the 5.0 is intended to support. Sorry.
I'm still not understanding. So 6 stories in the town center is a 2.5 far, and 6 stories in town center waterfront is a 5 far. So what does that look like?
Yes. So through the chair, it would be depending, I guess, on what the massing of the building looks like. So I'm not sure if I need to explain what FAR is at this stage, right? But basically it's the ratio of floor area to the property size. So a building on the same property size that's 5.0 FAR at 6 stories versus 2.0 FAR is going to potentially be twice as a mass, where a 2.0 would be broken up and have more airspace in the top section potentially of the massing, or maybe some cantilevering, et cetera. It would be less blocky than say something with a bit more treatment to provide that space or limitation for 2.0 FAR. So it's, the massing is less.
I still don't
If I may. Okay, I think that we're getting into technical details of FAR and so on and so forth, but I think that what Member Ritz is actually asking, and I could be wrong, and I think there has been sort of an answer, but maybe not quite, is there's a 5 potential max in FAR on the waterfront, and there's a 2.7 in the town center. Why is the town center not higher? Why is the waterfront so much higher? Why are they not more similar? What's going on there? Is that, okay, there we go.
Yeah, so through the chair, the epicenter of the town center is the Waterview Street or Brownsea Boulevard. And so therefore greatest density is permitted along that corridor. That's where the 5.0 FAR comes from.
Okay, so the answer to your question is because Brownsea Boulevard is actually where the maximum density is expected to happen. The waterfront actually has a gradient of 5 to 2. So it's meant to be massed in that area and then taper off.
But isn't this per lot? It's not per area, it's per lot.
I think this is the whole area at this point in time. The OCP treats the whole waterfront in one way. So the entire waterfront center at this point would have the 2 to 5. The zoning would be some, please.
Sorry, you can see in the table here, there's parentheses after 5.0 FAR that specifically says where buildings front Brownsy Boulevard. So that's where FAO starts and ends.
Right, it's for that one area. Clear as mud. Any further questions for staff? Yes, please.
Yes, through the chair, to the manager of planning, community planning. So you recently talked about an expedited timeline, that we're under a bit of a timeline crunch. And that's not for the entire OCP. It's only for the Bill 44 portion of, that's the requirement, the legislative requirement, right?
Through the chair, yes, that's a legislative requirement. It's also the direction we received from council when they endorsed the work plan and our timelines.
Okay. And then I have only one word left. Verisimilitude with around community engagement. So I'll let people look that up themselves.
Verisimilitude? I know what it means. All right, moving on. Any further quick questions?
Yeah, I'll be as quick as I can. So I would like to see the qualified environmental professionals report, please, if that could be appended to the next stage. I was really curious about this request for confirmation that OCP maps align with council priorities. So could I get an explanation of that? That was within one of this is the development community meeting.
Could you repeat that question?
The comment was that the development community is requesting confirmation that OCP maps align with council priorities.
Okay.
So I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I'm unclear.
Through the chair, there was some comments made about things like, for example, like an infrastructure map actually aligning with priorities that council has set for future upgrades or projects, and seeking. And then another example is like the parks and trails map about future trail and park projects, and do those actually align with the priorities that council would like to see implemented in the future?
Okay, right, that sounds good. I was really impressed by the way in which staff, in particular Mr. Riley, was replying to each one of these comments. Now the Kaltassin correspondence, which was quite substantial, do you plan to reply to that? Or have you yet, or you will be?
Yeah, through the chair, I believe I already responded to the
Oh, you did?
Kaltassin
Okay, that's
comments.
not in our report, but.
It is not?
I look
Okay.
forward to reading that.
Yeah, I'll take a look.
All
right.
Okay, wait. I can bring these up at council meeting. You know, I'll note the post-secondary education piece that we could add as a piece within the document. And finally, just quick questions around the Sooke Builders Association submission. So I assume that the association was working with the 2022 draft bylaw when they submitted their table of recommended changes.
Through the chair, there is some discrepancies there, like seemingly some misunderstandings, but they had the red line edit available on the website. So when I did connect with the Sooke Builders Association, I provided them with the links to the project page, and noted that shortly after we would have a clean version as well, which is just a bit easier to navigate. But I still noted some like misreferencing of our DPA 1. They noted it as DPA 3, for example. So maybe just a small typo, for example. But I think I've addressed their feedback where there was those misunderstandings. But yes, they had access to the red line version that council did.
And yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I haven't made my questions yet, and I'm the chair. So you're done. You're done. Thank you. Okay, so I have a question. Obviously, there's a tension between the vision of the community as shaped by, I think, Mr. McNaught said bad development in the past, and the development community's concerns over an overcomplicated, over-prescriptive document that is simply unworkable. There have been suggestions as laid out today that we could move towards simply adopting Bill 44 recommendations with the existing OCP or any number of variations. I would like to know whether or not we can get more information when this comes to council, because it will come up to council. This is the crux of the matter. This tension is really what is going to slow the document down or stop it. And so we need that addressed really firmly. What can we have something on that added in? So for example, what would the consequences be of each one of the options? Good or bad? But I think we're going to need that information. And so I'm asking for answers now, which I don't think are required. It might be a little bit tough, but putting you on notice that I do believe that's going to be the problem and the tension for council to make a decision and move forward. Okay. And I think that, yes. Oh, there was one more thing I did want to ask as a question, specifically the DPAs. My impression is the DPAs are not actually a result of community engagement, the result of spending $200,000 of the province's money to actually improve our development processes, making them more streamlined, more effective, and more in line with what we believe the development community needs. That was, I believe, where the DPAs were shaped. Is that correct?
Yeah, through the chair, two different things. So the procedures bylaw basically looked at gaining some efficiencies through our procedures, like delegated authority, et cetera, or delegated minor development variance permits. The OCP in itself came about before those that funding was in place for expedited approvals, et cetera, through DAPR. So yeah, the DPAs were created early on, before my time here as well. So in 2022, I believe, when that draft was first created, those DPAs did exist. We did consolidate two of them, the Town Center Core and Town Center Waterfront, but otherwise they've largely been left unchanged with a few tweaks to language.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think I'm going to call the question. All in favor? I think everyone's been making lots. I think you have, but let's give you one last chance.
Okay, I'd just like to really emphasize many of the comments we heard during public comment are addressed within the very detailed response Mr. Riley has provided to the Sooke Builders Association. And I highly recommend that everyone read that in great depth, because it is it clear, for me anyway, it cleansed the palate and made me, yeah, thank you for that work. And yes, please read that.
Thank you. Yes.
Through the chair to staff, could we just, there was one comment about the 15-meter setback, which never seems to go away. And I didn't feel that the comment was true. And I was wondering if you can address that
To staff.
to staff.
Can you remind me what that question was?
Something of, you know, it was 15 meters. I remember originally this document, I think we were trying for 30 or something was the provincial recommendation. And when there was a lot of a protest against that, it had to do with the aspirational trail, had to do with people thinking that the district was expropriating land. And the idea that I think it was, I understand we went back to 15, the aspirational trail would only happen if properties were sold and were redeveloped into like Heron View or something like that, which has a bit of a trail. But it seemed to be, there was a comment made tonight that that's not, or this afternoon, that that's not true, that it's for any landowner, even current landowners. I don't want to misquote, but just if you could explain about the 15-meter setback and the.
Yeah, through the chair, a lot to unpack there, right? Very contentious subtopic of this OCP. But yeah, so originally there was a 30-meter setback basically to keep that area naturalized along the foreshore. So all foreshore property owners basically being affected. But it was reduced to 15. That 15 meters doesn't mean that, landscaping can't be conducted or pruning of a tree or removal of a bush, et cetera. It's mainly for larger scale developments to protect foreshore related wildlife, plant species, et cetera, which are delicate ecosystems. Basically, it doesn't exempt single family dwellings, which I think was a bit of a misunderstanding from the previous director's comments. But I think the intent of those comments was basically that the existing homeowners shouldn't fear of expropriation of land or development permits. It's mainly to capture land alteration, for example, or potentially subdivision or building that are occurring close to the foreshore. So new development, and basically a time of rezoning where there isn't necessarily development, there could be opportunities for staff to then request dedication of land. That would only occur at rezoning is when we could ask for that. And that would be in accordance with other master planning documents that we have through the, say, Parks and Trails plan. So sorry if I didn't answer all the questions, but basically there's a good response in the appendix A, I believe, the written submissions, where I responded to one of the major players in that push to for the foreshore 50-meter setback and what the DPA is intended to protect, basically. Yeah, yeah. But I just want to recognize also that there's still some internal work that staff can do to add additional clarity, like supplemental guidelines, because while the OCP guidelines, they are somewhat in a gray zone, and there could be room for interpretation, and there's a benefit and a negative to that. But it's good to have a consistent, recognition of what these guidelines should, how they should be interpreted. So we could look at internally creating some guidelines, both internally and for external property owners when they do come to the district and want to know if they are triggering development, for example, that we have some pretty clear guidance on yes or no.
Thank you for that question. I'd like to quickly just follow up on that. My understanding when I was there is that council basically went back to the status quo 15 meters that have been in place all along. My question is, are there any other further changes in terms of either provincial legislation or anything else that might actually be complicating the matter beyond what we've done, which is simply return, as far as I know, to the status quo that was present in every other OCP? Is there something else that we don't know about that could actually be complicating the matter?
Not to my knowledge. There's other regulations in place, like the floodplain regulation bylaw, which requires a 50-meter setback to habitable floor areas. We also have a zoning bylaw regulation for 50-meter setback of any structures. This DPA is separate from that. So again, it's looking at erosional impacts potentially at that 50 meters or within or outside of it, if not exempt. But otherwise, the DFO or provincial legislation kicks in at the high water mark.
Okay.
So anything above that is something that the district would have authority over.
If I may interrupt, the things you were talking about previously, are those new changes in this OCP in terms of, no, they're not. So this is still reaffirming the existing situation. So nothing's particularly changed. And I think what you're saying is that staff could try to do more to clarify what our existing framework is to property owners so they know exactly what they're dealing with. Is that correct?
Yes.
We're not actually changing anything. It's the same as it's always been. There seems to be a certain amount of concern over what's always been in place, and we need to clarify that. Is that
just the DPA is new? We haven't had a foreshore DPA previously, so that 15 meters is a new thing.
Okay.
We have always had a 50, well, not always, but since the zoning bylaw was adopted, we've had a 50-meter setback to the foreshore or high water mark, and the floodplain regulation bylaw was adopted with similar requirements or regulations, again, to the habitable floor area of dwellings around the same time.
Okay, and let me follow up with the foreshore. Is the foreshore presenting changes? Actual changes that would significantly impact property owners?
Yes, there's a new set of guidelines and a new development permit area that basically looks at providing some additional oversight and guidance and regulation for foreshore property owners where they are developing property.
Okay, and to further follow up, my understanding is that there's a number of exemptions. Are single-family homes exempt or not?
Not specifically.
Okay, so there is a definite gray area that will cause people concerns. Thank you very much. That's good to know. All right. Sorry, just trying to figure it all out. As Member Ritz pointed out, it's got very complicated all of a sudden on that one. Okay, any further comments? Last comments? Councilor Pearson.
Yep. I can't support I can't support it going forward. The OCP it's got too many gray areas in it again. They're gonna be exposed one by one by one. I'm glad that myself and two other counselors went to the developer meeting input to hear what their concerns were, because they're the user group. There's a lot of property owners and there's a lot of infringement on property that are built into this, but I'm glad I heard it from the working group myself, even though it was recommended that I don't attend, and I didn't get the email till late, but I'm glad I did attend that meeting to hear from them directly, so.
Thank you. Councilor Beddoes?
This OCP is for everybody in Sooke. It's not just for the builders. It's for everybody and their input, as well as the builders. I was at that meeting. A lot of those questions that the builders brought up were answered. A lot you answered after the fact. So again, as long as people are heard, we're not okaying the OCP. We're just okaying this gather this report. That's all that's happening, is bring it to council so they have more stuff to deal with at a council meeting. I'm just, people are twisting this into it's a referendum on the OCP. It's not. It's on the engagement process that we've taken part, and it was directed by council to do exactly what they've done, and they have a report back of what they found, and that's what we have to get to council. So I'm getting a little bit frustrated with trying to scuttle the OCP as opposed to get the information to the council members that we can make the decisions that we have to make. So this is what we asked for. This has been very comprehensive. I applaud you on the information that you've got brought forward, and your expertise on consulting the public. And now it's time to give it back to council, and then councillors can debate the overall merits of the OCP. But let's deal with what we're dealing with here, and it's a report to go to council.
Thank you. Any final comments? Nope. Okay, just checking because, yeah, I think you're the only person who hasn't, so.
Quickly, sorry.
Yeah.
So the reworked version of this, is it available now, or still got a few more things to do it?
Yeah, through the chair, it's available now on the project page.
So that'll be the one that goes to October 14th council. Or...
Just this report and its attachments will flow to the October 14th meeting. Following that, we'll have a reworked red line version of the OCP and a new table of changes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One final comment. The OCP is the vision of the community, and of course, developers have to use it. So it's not one or the other, but that'll all come out, I guess, if we move this forward. All in favor? Opposed? Two opposed, Member Cummings and Councillor Pearson. The motion passes. Thank you very much. And at this point, is anybody interested in adjournment? Oh. Anybody else? There we go. Okay, all in favor? Everybody. That's good. Thank you very much, everybody.